Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Serious Cinema from Serious Men. I'm your host Gabe Bradham, and joining me today for a little discussion on Joker, Folie, Deux, and a draft of our favorite movies from the 1970s. It's entertainment YouTuber Rye Movie Guy. Rye, how you doing, sir?
I am doing fantastic. I know it's been a minute since I've been on the show, but I have a blast not only just being one of your good friends, but just talking some movies and pop culture in general. So thank you for having me back.
Of course, Ryan, I think this is now your fourth time, third or fourth, but I believe fourth time, fifth if we include the secret episode that never aired for
Oh yeah.
reasons that will never be revealed live on air. Um, and you are in just astute, austere company, joining Tim Rose, whom we both love and would do anything for, and my sister
Absolutely.
Emily. So that's good company to be in, Ryan. And obviously Tucker, but considering he's the co-host. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it today. He is spending some time with his father, Larry, whom we love. Larry, the grandfather of this show. If this is Tucker and I's baby, Larry is the grandfather. So, Tucker, we hope you're enjoying time with your dad. But that just gives Ryan and I more time to freak out about old movies. Before we do, Ryan, I'm drinking a cup of coffee because it's 11 a.m. here in Wisconsin, and yesterday was a Saturday, so I need my sleep. And so I've got my mug, and it's full of movie quotes. And you've got Hasta la vista, baby. Toto, I've got a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close up. Ryan, I know this is like a difficult question to spring on you, and I did not ask you this to prepare you beforehand. What's your favorite movie quote?
Favorite movie quote? The one that I go back to, and it's kind of a cliche, but so a lot of people love it's from the original Star Wars, but a lot of people say it's not. A lot of people say "May the Force be with you," which yes, that's a no-brainer. My favorite though, it's still about the Force, but it's the one where Obi-Wan is about to set off and face Darth Vader and the Death Star, and Luke is like nervous because this is the first point in the film when the actual adventure kicks in that he's alone, and he's with these new people, Han and Chewie, and he doesn't really know them. And and of course 3PO and R2-D2 are jumping around, but Obi-Wan's just like the door opens, he's about to head off because he has his own journey to take care of, and he goes, "The Force will be with you always." It just hits because it's one of those moments everybody can relate to this in their own lives, and that happens too, like whether someone's lost a loved one or maybe just someone who we haven't seen in a while. Like these are big moments that we don't realize are going to change our lives forever. So that's why that scene always stuck out to me. So,
Yeah, I think that's a great one. For me, I've got two, and I'm definitely tipping my pitches, as we would say in baseball, for this draft. For one of them, it's The Godfather. I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
oh yeah,
Sometimes when
can't
you
go
want
wrong with that.
your sibling to do something, and you're like, make my bed, and I'll give you a can of soda. I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. But
But
then
you sound like the
Network.
guy from Zootopia.
Oh well,
You
thank you.
disrespect
That's
my daughter.
I've got the longer hair and I'm kind of feeling like the rat from Zootopia, so I appreciate that. And then the other one, Network. I mean, it's a Patty Chayefsky screenplay, so of course. But I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take it anymore
Awesome.
because some days I look around and I'm like, we all need to be feeling like this because Network has become too true. So Ryan, thanks for humoring me with that. Joker Folie Ado, were you excited for this movie? Just what was your mental state before heading in? I know when the Venice Film Festival happened, it seemed like, hmm, there might be some issues here, but then here on this show, we chalked it up to we'll have to see because the Venetians, like they've got completely different tastes than we do. So, what
Yeah.
was your hype meter essentially going into Joker Folie Ado?
So my hype meter was it was a little I was a little less excited than I was for the first one because despite having some flaws, I still really love and appreciate a lot of that first movie. I know it's not for everybody, and there's definitely some clumsy stuff, like some of the writing's pretty heavy-handed, and like people say, is it plagiarism or an homage to Scorsese films? I still think it did its own thing, and I think it was a huge boost for the comic book genre and film. That being said, the second movie, the one aspect that people were nervous about that I was excited was when they said it was going to be a musical. I actually got excited. I was like, even
Same.
people who like the yeah, even people who like the first Joker said, "Now's your opportunity. You've set everything up in this one. Go as weird as possible. Fully get into that mindset of this guy's mind." And even with the mixed reviews, I was like, well, if you look at the reviews of the first Joker, even though it had a lot of reviews and it was a huge box office success, there were still a lot of people that were mixed on it, critics and audiences alike. So that didn't bother me. The addition of Lady Gaga, I was like, okay, Todd Phillips, he's grown past the Hangover era of his careers, or hopefully the Hangover twos and threes. I really like War Dogs, by the way. I don't know how you feel about that film.
I think War Dogs is underrated. I know there's like one side of like film social media that's like this movie is a masterpiece. I'm like I wouldn't go that far. But
Yeah.
Jonah Hill is having a lot of fun in that movie. I will say
Oh
that.
yeah. It's not his best, but it's one of his best
Sure,
roles. Like,
sure, sure,
he's really
sure.
good. And Miles Teller's good too. And also, I think that was like Ana de Armas's first big film, right?
Yeah, I think so. It was either that or Hands of Stone. I don't remember which one
Okay.
came out first, but yes, but you know that movie is
Yeah.
underrated. Um,
But yeah, my
yeah,
point is that like seeing him grow as a filmmaker, I was just excited to see anything he was gonna do.
yeah.
But yeah, but I'll flip it back to you.
So I would say my hype meter is exactly the same as you. Felt a little precarious about this. Obviously, my first mental state was we don't need this movie, right? There was
Yeah.
no need for it. The way Joker ended, he scampers out of the asylum, bloody footprints. Maybe it's a hallucination. Maybe he really did kill somebody. We don't know. Perfect. We don't need to know. The movie's done. Um, and now Joker Folie gets announced, and I'm like, okay, I love Lady Gaga. She's supremely talented. The fact that she didn't win the Academy Award just, kind of blows me away because she's very, very talented. And I love Joaquin Phoenix. I don't think he should have won the Academy Award in 2019. Think that should have gone to DiCaprio, and that kind of lends its way to my theory here because here's why I think people don't like Joker Folie do, and I also don't like it. This movie hates you. This movie fucking hates you. It does not like you. It thinks you are the problem. I genuinely think Todd Phillips was furious that the people liked Joker, that people sympathized with it, and that they gave the Academy Award to Joaquin Phoenix. I think Todd Phillips hated that this movie was celebrated
Hmm.
because I think he wanted people to understand, no, this is not, you know, an exploration or an extriation for these mass murderers and these school shooters and these people who do heinous things. Oh, because we can all have one bad day. No, 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 no. Don't co-opt my movie to do that. What all I'm saying is bad people usually have an origin story to them. That's it. It doesn't explain anything. And I think that was really fascinating. And I think he wanted to double down on, look, if you're a bad person, shit things are going to happen to you. You deserve a bad life. And there's no catharsis in Joker Folie Do. None. And we're going to get into spoilers here. Um, I always do this on the show in the best interest of trying to look out for the financial state of our listeners. I know we have a lot of college listeners. Do not spend money to go see this movie. It's not worth it. I love theaters. There's better things coming out. October 11th, Saturday night is coming out. I am pleased to say it is one of the very best movies of the year. Absolutely go see that. The Wild Robot, go see it 2 or 3 times. It's an animation masterpiece. Don't spend your money on Joker for Do. It's a waste of time. It'll be on Max. It's just a very frustrating movie. It doubles down on the darkness. I mean, there's a moment of graphic
Yeah.
sexual assault where you don't see stuff, but you know what's happening. And I was like, this is one, it was not needed, but it just added credence to my theory. Like, oh, Todd Phillips really wants to say F you as much as he possibly can. I was really frustrated by the movie's usage of Lady Gaga. They don't, she's not in it much. When she's in it, she's good. She never gets to sing like Gaga. I think that might be one of the biggest issues. There is no Gaga moment, and maybe that was me for bringing that expectation in. I just wish they would have taken advantage of her musical abilities more. And then she just disappears, and it's kind of a half-baked courtroom movie, and then Ryan, the ending of this movie is super controversial because some people think it is the best part of the movie. Some people hate it and say it's jarring from the rest of it. Why don't you explain the ending and just give us your thoughts on it?
Yeah, do you want me to go into spoiler territory?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. We gave the spoiler warning already, so.
Okay. Yeah, so like so for those who have seen it, of course you already know what we're talking about. And again, spoiler warning again for everybody else. But so yeah, the ending of the film at this point, Arthur Fleck has proposed his love or professed his love to Lady Gaga's character, but this is after he announces to the world during this courtroom scene that's being heavily televised that he can't be this character that people want him to be. He's not the Joker, he's Arthur Fleck. And all these crazy decisions, good or bad, were made by him. Um, and then, of course, wacky hijinks ensued. There's a bomb that goes off in the courtroom. His fan base, like these two guys who are dressed as Joker, help him escape. But then there's a car crash. He runs back to his old home, which was kind of a stupid idea, but I guess it made sense because he wants to go back home. Because when I was watching the movie, I was like, why would you go back? You know they're going to look for you there. But he goes back to the iconic Joker steps, which are located in the Bronx, New York, goes upstairs. Lady Gaga's there waiting for him, and he goes, "Oh my God, hey, now we can run away." And because she was obsessed with him being this person that he's not, the Joker, well, even though it's weird because they talk about split personalities and stuff like
Yeah.
that. She wants him to be that. He's like, "I can't give that to you." And then she essentially ditches him, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure the character, so she's playing Harley Quinn. She says that she's pregnant. Do you think she still has the kid?
No, I'm
Is it
fairly
implied she
certain
had an
she's
abortion or did she die? Or
no, I
did
think she was lying about it.
Oh, so she
I
lied about
thought
the
she
kid.
said, I'm pretty sure she says in that argument, I was never pregnant or something along those lines. I could
Okay.
be like misremembering that, but I'm fairly certain she says she's
Okay.
not pregnant.
Because I just know he's like, we're having a baby, and she's just kind of like, or whatever. And then she
Yeah,
walks,
I
yeah.
took that to mean like, are we? Because she lied before. Earlier in the beginning of the movie, she was like, my family all got burnt up in an explosion. I'm Harley Quinn and all this stuff. And then Catherine Keener's like, lies. She's a liar.
Mhm. So yeah, there's that. Cops show up, take him back to jail. Everybody's like all rooting for him because all the guys in the prison are it's Arkham Asylum. All the
Yes.
guys love him, and he's there. And then these guards bring him out. They're like, Arthur, you have a visitor. So he's got his cuffs on. They're gonna bring him over, and then we hear this guy chuckling in the back. And the someone who like they actually set it up. They do set it up well in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen this guy in the background several times. We're like, who is this guy? And little do we realize he has the biggest role in the movie. He
Mm-hmm.
freaking kills Arthur Fleck, this person we've spent two full movies getting to know, just stabs him in the gut. Camera starts zooming in, just dies, and this guy is laughing in the background. I'm not sure if this was intentional, but it's kind of implying maybe that's going to be the new Joker, or that's
Yeah.
this line of
Yeah.
jokes just going to keep going. So Arthur just got the ball rolling. And that scene, like you said, it will make or break this movie for you.
Yeah. I think in 10 years, this movie is gonna be completely reappraised and people are gonna say it's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
I think now I'm not a big fan. I think that was Todd Phillips. That was the middle finger. That was no, 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 no. This wasn't even the real Joker. You didn't even get the origin story for the real Joker. There's another one. I hate you. I'm gonna go make Old School 2 and make Will Ferrell run around naked. And honestly, I'd rather watch that than Joker Folie Do. I gave Joker Folie Do a 5 out of 10 because it is visually stunning. It is one of the most beautiful looking movies of the entire year. The if you like New York glitz and glam. This movie has a style. It looks like New York, New York. You know, people are gonna accuse Todd Phillips of cribbing from King of Comedy and Taxi Driver in the first movie, and in this one he was like, "Man, I love New York, New York. Come on, Liza Minnelli and Robert De Niro." And I
Yeah.
was like, "Yeah, I also like New York, New York. I think it's awesome." So if you like that, Gaga tries her best, but the screenplay just wasn't written with her in mind. I honestly think she was added maybe halfway through production because they're like, look, people need something else to go see this movie. Same thing with Harvey Dent is introduced, Two Face, and he gets half of his face blown off and then he's gone. It's just a frustrating movie, and I know the movie doesn't like me, and I don't like the movie in return. So, not crazy about it. It's gonna be reappraised though. Ryan, what was your score?
Oof. I gave it a 3.5 on Letterboxd, which I guess would be like a 7 out of 10.
7. Yes.
Yeah. So like the thing is, it's hard. I still liked a lot of the movie. In fact, I think there's great individual moments. I thought it was really moving to me at a lot of points. Joaquin Phoenix, once again, is phenomenal as this character. I feel like he really immersed himself again, just and also like the physicality of it too. Like when it opened up and he's all like his bones are showing from how thin he is.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh my God, he really went all out again. Um, I think there's wonderful filmmaking. I think also there's a great opening credit sequence or just an opening sequence that kicks the movie off. Um, I know we mentioned spoilers. Do you mind if I get into that for a
No,
second?
no, go ahead. Absolutely.
Yeah, just real quick, there's a great moment. It starts off with like the Looney Tunes theme, and we have
Hmm.
this animated sequence with the Joker. I'm not saying I wanted the whole movie to be animated, but it stood out, and I was like, I wanted the whole movie to be that. Like, just
Hot
go
take, that
all
was the
the way.
best part of the movie. That was the best part of the movie.
I don't think you're the only one though. I think some people wanted more of that because it was like, oh, it's different. We're gonna go fully insane with this guy's head, but then it just as soon as that ended, just misery. And it
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
it's my friend who I saw it with, my good buddy, shout out to Max Sloth. He said it best. It's less Joker 2 and more Joker 1.5.
Yep. Yeah. Lion King 1.5. And
Yeah.
it's just it's whatever. Do you feel like a 7 is accurate to how you feel about it, or are you this might be one where you're gonna have to watch it 2 or 3 times and go, there's something here, but maybe it's a 6, or look,
Yeah.
I understand the artistic intention. Because if it was designed to be an FU, it's a very, very good FU. Like if that's what the movie was made for, if it's a giant middle finger, it's a pretty good giant middle finger.
So, and I know we got to move on, but two things I wanted to mention. So, a couple of friends of mine, we compared it to two horror sequels in particular. We were of the same mindset, where it was okay. My friend compared it to Gremlins 2. Gremlins
Okay.
2 is like this satirical meta take on the first movie, where it's the
Yes.
same thing, but it's like really like you guys are into this stuff, and then it's just kind of making fun of the audience and the whole media frenzy surrounding it. And I that kind of adds to more of your point where it feels like an
Mhm.
fu to the audience. Me, I definitely agree with that, but I also saw it as Halloween 2, not the
Sure.
Rob Zombie one, but the one from the 80s, where it was
Yes.
like Halloween 2 to me. So I've always had a soft spot for that one because I think aesthetically they nailed the look of the first movie, and I think the performances are still good. But it's like, and the score, another thing too that was disappointing. I loved the score from the first one. I was happy that won best score at the Oscars. But with this one, they didn't introduce any new themes, so that was kind of
Hmm.
disappointing. It was just more of the same. Halloween 2, the tagline for that, the first movie, the night he came home. Ooh, what does that mean? Like, because people didn't know Michael Myers back then. Second movie, what are we gonna call it? Well, it's just an extension of the first one. More of the night he came home, which I'm like, I can't tell if that's a cool tagline or the lamest tagline ever.
It's pretty lame. It's pretty lame. Let's be
So
real.
basically, as I've matured as a cinephile, how I feel about Halloween 2 is kind of like Joker. Um, is it kind of lame? Yes. Do I still like it? Kind of, actually. And that's where I'm conflicted because I think there's greatness in it. It just doesn't fully flow or come together like the original did. So,
Yeah. How I felt about Joker Folie was similar to the end of Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. I was screaming, "Turn it off! Turn it off!" Thank you. Thank
stop
you. I'll
it.
be here. I'll be here all night. All right, Ryan, 1970s movie draft. The reason I chose it is if if Joker Folie came out in 1971, it would be considered like a movie masterpiece, right? So I thought that would be a
Oh,
fascinating time to put this. This is very similar to all our movie drafts. We've got 10 years from 1970 to 1979. You got to take one movie from each year and you can take them in any order because that's how we do it. Ryan, you're the guest and a beloved friend. I'm going to flip a coin. I'll let you choose between heads or tails. So you
oof.
can call it.
Tails.
All right. Ryan has said tails because tails never fails. Tails has failed you today, though. It was
Ah,
heads. It was heads. Um,
it's just
so
because
with my, what'd you say?
it's just because it's me. It's my
No, no, it's actually because I'm lying to you. No, I'm just kidding.
fault. Oh
So
yeah, I
with my,
technically can't see anything.
you want me here? Hold on. You want me to send you a photo? You son of a bitch. Don't worry about that. Here. Don't you ever say I don't have integrity again in my life. No, it's good to take a photo of this because otherwise people would say, actually, Ryan should have been the one to flip the coin. Okay, what you're doing is lying. All right, Ryan, you've received a photo of the coin, just so you know. With my
Oh
first
man.
pick, this one was exceptionally easy. In 1972, I will be taking Francis Ford Coppola's second best movie behind Megalopolis. That's a joke.
Ooh,
The Godfather. I've made some really good memes about The Godfather, Ryan, and I will send them to you. Um, and Ryan, I just saw that you liked my coin, so good to know that you know I'm being honest. The Godfather
heavens.
is an American crime epic on one hand, a dysfunctional family drama, and a revenge fantasy. And then Francis Ford Coppola said, and I'm filling it with all the best actors in Hollywood, rolling it up and making a delicious burrito. And I eat that burrito all the time. The movie does not feel its length by any means. And there's already so much we've said about The Godfather. You can't come up with original thoughts on it. Al Pacino as Michael Corleone, incredible. I mean, just he's so observant and shark-like, and it's a fantastic story of how a good person, in an attempt to do a good thing, provide for his family, ended up becoming a monster. Marlon Brando. There was some difficulties with him in making the movie. There's a couple times where he's reading cue cards. Every time he's on screen, pardon me, you're captivated. I don't care. He is that good, as Vito Corleone. And then
Yeah.
you've got Robert Duvall and James Caan and just these other great supporting actors populating this world. And the story is a little bit trite, and we've all heard it before. you know the guy is exiled because he does an action kind of like Lion King. He does something that isn't good, in this case, getting revenge for his father, leave the gun, taking the cannoli with him, and then he's exiled to Italy. But even his exile, people won't stop coming after him. So he goes, okay, it's time to go home and settle the family business. And the last 20 minutes of Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather is the best 20 minutes in any movie ever. Nothing is better than the end of The Godfather. I do not care. Right after Vito's funeral, and I would say spoilers, but it's been 52 years. I don't feel the need to spoiler warning, but right after Vito's funeral, Michael knows he's going to settle the family business. He's identified the traitor, and he is there baptizing a child, rejecting the works of Satan while propagating the works of Satan at the very same time. I love The Godfather. I think it's a masterpiece. The score is incredible. It still looks great. The 4K remasters look fantastic. They've got like that beautiful film grain. The coloring is wonderful. Performance is incredible, and it's nice to know that Francis Ford Coppola used to be good at making movies because Megalopolis sucks Megacocculus, and you can quote me on that. So, Ryan, what will you be taking after I've taken 1972's The Godfather?
Oh yeah, and side note, I'm pretty sure we felt exactly the same about Megalopolis. So
You were
that would be
much
a fun
nice. We
discussion.
gave it the same score, but you were
Yeah.
much nicer in your review.
I you know, it wasn't boring. I laughed a lot, but it was also kind of a depressing experience watching that.
Yeah. No, 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 no. I
Honestly, more
was.
depressing than Joker in some ways.
Yes, yes.
Because Joker's intentionally depressing. That was like, oh God.
I wasn't laughing with Megalopolis. I was laughing at Megalopolis. That's the difference there.
I know you said you're not a big Entourage fan, but it felt like a movie, like a bad movie that Vincent Chase would have been in. That's
It
what it felt
it
like.
really does. I'm gonna use Megalon to fix my face.
Oh
Okay.
God.
Were you gonna tell us that you could do that? No. No, you were not. All right, Ryan, what are you taking next, sir?
Yeah, so of course can't argue against The Godfather. That is objectively the best film of that year and maybe the decade, maybe of all time. Um, but for me, I'm gonna continue with the Coppola train for a second. It was between these two movies. Which one do I want? I'm just gonna jump to 1979.
Yeah, okay.
I
That feels
gotta pick
right.
Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
For 1979, Apocalypse Now is the best film of that year. Kramer versus Kramer is a phenomenal film with some fantastic performances from Dustin Hoffman and Meryl Streep. That being said, even though I understand like that film is a bit more relatable to the movie going public, the best made film of that year and one of the best movies of all time is Apocalypse Now. Um, the amount of pressure it took to getting that film made, it feels like every time Coppola's making a movie, or at least one on that scale, bless you. It's um it's always like a cluster,
Thank
you
you.
know what? Yeah. But yeah, that movie, he was like he always talks about how he was shooting in the Philippines. Um the movie's going over budget. They have all these crazy things going
He
on.
almost kills Martin Sheen, like,
Martin Sheen's losing his mind.
and he has
Marlon,
a widowmaker heart attack,
yeah,
like three arteries clogged at the same time, then they explode.
yeah.
So not
No,
good.
there was a lot going on. But they still were able to craft an absolute masterpiece. This film, you want to talk about 4K restorations, this film still looks beautiful. It has some of the best iconography people can think of. The usage of the Doors' music perfectly fits the era and tone that they're going for. And it's weird. It's weird because I've spoken with a lot of people who have um families or family members who are veterans, people who served
Yeah.
in Vietnam or just have connections. And even though the movie's going for kind of like this dreamlike state, a lot of people talk about how it feels accurate to how they felt during the war at that time. So even though Coppola, when he was promoting it at Cannes, as much as I respect and admire the guy, when he was saying my movie's not about Vietnam, it is Vietnam, I know that can come off a little pretentious for some people, but for people who were there and they watch it, it seems to match that tone. I just think one thing I love too, I love movies that are on a grand scale, but I also love movies that are hypnotic and completely put you in a trance, and it feels like an out of body experience. And I've seen the movie, I think only twice, but each time I watch, maybe three times, but like two or three times I've seen it, and I always feel like entranced by what I'm watching. You feel like you're fully in the mindset of this character, you understand the stakes, and there's a great philosophical point to it as well, outside of the literal war. So that's my pick, Apocalypse Now.
Yeah. Apocalypse Now, good pick. Hot take, I prefer Hearts of Darkness, the documentary about the production of
Yes, I forgot
Apocalypse
to mention
Now.
them.
I
Yeah.
prefer it more than the actual movie, and that's just a me thing. I think Apocalypse Now is wonderful. Robert Duvall, great in it. I love the smell of napalm in the morning. That line should not have been quotable because it's about people burning to death, but just the way Duvall delivers it, we all quote it. For me, this next one is easy. I was really worried you would take this. I gotta shout out my brother Ben because it's one of his comfort movies. It's also one of my comfort movies. It's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I think is
Oh.
just from 1971. It's a masterpiece starring Gene Wilder from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's a legend. You and I initially were going to do a 1960s movie draft, and I was really excited to explain to people why The Producers is a masterpiece because it so is. But instead, I get to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's beautiful and a little creepy, but that's okay. The music for it is incredible. Pure imagination is just one of the most beautiful, arresting songs I think I've ever heard in a movie. Great supporting cast. I would say this movie, like, what it does so well is it's got moments of being creepy where it's like, those people are certainly dead. Then it's got moments of being a really fantastic musical, the I've Got a Golden Ticket sequence, and they're tap dancing after being in bed. Come on, Uncle Joe, show us those moves. Get down, mama. I think is great. And then Gene Wilder, like, actually brings a lot of dimensions to Willy Wonka. He's not just this one guy. He's a guy who's looking for a replacement, who's obviously battling depression, who wants to go out and look at the world. And he's so much better than Johnny Depp in that god awful movie. I just think Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is sweet and a little spooky and a perfect movie to watch when you're 8 years old and you just never forget it. So I'm very happy to take Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I was scared you would take it, but Apocalypse Now is a great pick. Now it's your turn to pick again.
I'm a little jealous you took it, but I mean, again, it's such a great movie, and it's one of those films too. Like I remember Red Letter Media did a review, their older series on that, and they talked about how it's one of those movies like a Star Wars, a Jaws, where it's like lightning in a bottle. Just the time that it was made, all the people that were lined up to be a part of it, whether it's the actors, the directing, the adaptation angle of it. It's just a phenomenal film. And kids still watch it to this day. Shows you like the power of that movie. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and like
It,
people
it
still do like plays of it as well.
yeah, it is not the best movie of 1971, so there's a fantastic movie directed by Bill Friedkin that you'll get to take at some point. I'm assuming that's probably what
Ooh,
you'll take. But
I'm
I
between
just
two right now for that year.
okay,
Between
okay. But I just love it, and I wouldn't feel right having let it pass in this draft. So I will let you go next. Go crazy, Big Fudge. I'm kidding. I'm the Big Fudge. You're the Little Fudge.
you're always big fudge.
Absolutely.
No, but like, okay. Well, speaking of Bill Friedkin, actually, we're on the same wavelength today because I'm gonna jump to 73 and talk about easily the best horror film ever made, and that is Bill Friedkin's, or William Peter Blatty's, I should say, The Exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
This is starring Linda Blair. This is starring Lee J. Cobb is in it, Max von Sydow, Ellen Burstyn, and some of them in Oscar-nominated performances. One of my favorite child performances of all time, Linda Blair portraying a possessed girl. And first of all, huge chops to a 12-year-old playing a role like this when there's literally no reference point for how to play a character like this. And yet a child star was able to get down and dirty on that. Um, and I'm forgetting the character. I know it's like Mercedes something, the one who does the voice of the demon possessing Reagan. Um,
Pazuzu is voiced by, I will look it up while you keep talking. Mercedes
okay.
McCambridge voices
Yes.
Pazuzu.
I knew it was Mercedes. Um, no, but this is a film that it's one of those movies. It's honestly like it kind of a year after The Godfather. It's kind of like The Godfather of horror movies, where it's something that's elevated to a status that you never thought was possible. When you watch it, it's not necessarily about, the dumbed down exorcism and possession type movies that we see nowadays. Because this movie has influenced so much crap over the years in the horror genre and just in general. But the idea is that it's about questioning one's faith, and I think that even if people who aren't religious, I think will still appreciate or get something out of it. The film is challenging you in the sense that if you believe in some sort of higher power or deity, you also have to believe in the devil. There's always that balancing point. And think about it, every story is about life and death, good versus evil in some capacity. Um, and this is a story too that it questions your knowledge of faith, it questions your belief, how far you're willing to go. Um, and I just think it has some incredible performances. Tubular Bells is one of the most iconic themes, which I think is from something else, but it's mostly associated with this film. The crisp fall air of this. It actually is kind of like a holiday movie because it starts around spooky season in October, right when the movie's starting, and then um it ends towards like Christmas time, which is right when they perform the exorcism. I think this movie is beautifully shot. It's something that emotionally resonates with me, maybe because I grew up Catholic. It emotionally resonates with me. I think it still is legitimately disturbing. If it's not scary for some people, it at least gets under your skin on a psychological level. And it's just an incredible film. And that as much as I like Sting, I know you're not a big fan of the Sting. My pick would have gone to Exorcist. I think that was the most important and best film of that year for the Oscars. That should have won Best Picture. So that's my pick, Exorcist.
I don't want to spoil anything. I don't dislike the Sting. I just dislike the score. But we'll talk about
Oh
the
yeah.
Sting a little bit later. You convinced me, Ryan. You took a horror movie. I'm taking the best horror movie of the 70s. No disrespect to Exorcist fans. Exorcist is number two. There's only one better. 1974's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Ooh.
Who will survive and what will be left of them? Thank God
Which
the
I just
Texas
saw
Chainsaw.
recently, by the way. I
Yes,
saw that
yes, you
Redwood
did.
Cinema was hosting an event for the 50th anniversary. Seeing that on a huge like IMAX screen pretty much was incredible. So sorry, I don't mean to derail you.
No, no, it's okay. Thank God the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is only 83 minutes because I don't know if I can make it through much more of that movie. That
It's pretty
movie,
lean. Yeah.
it's pretty disturbing and disgusting and incredible. What I love about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is it's so smart. So for anyone who doesn't know, the 70s, it was considered the decade that American family values eroded, and then this thing called the New Right emerged in the 80s. The New Right, essentially, and I don't mean to get political, the New Right is essentially the MAGA party of Republicans that we have today, where it's like family values, kill the gay people, which not good. Don't do that. We're against that on this show. But essentially, what ends up happening is because of all these things undermining American values. For example, the president, whom people love Nixon. He turns out to be a con artist. Vietnam, people, doing some heinous shit during the Vietnam War and coming back shells of human beings. And so there are scenes of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre that are supposed to look like typical sitcom families or family paintings, like some Norman Rockwell type shit. And it's a perversion because this is a family of cannibals that are eating people and cutting them up with chainsaws. And you're like, wow, we never gave Toby Hooper enough credit, but they really should. One thing I love about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that movie is bright as hell. And it's because they're not pulling any punches and you see everything. And I just rewatched it for Horror-tober. The only thing worse than what goes bump in the dark is the things that are proud that move in the light. And you're like, oh no, no, thank you. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a masterpiece. It's disgusting. I want to lose my lunch every time I watch it, but I also can't look away. It is perfection. There has never been another good Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie though. So maybe
Second one's a
Ryan,
great comedy.
maybe Ryan, maybe that's what you are supposed to do. That's your first big project is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like the 2018 Halloween. Maybe that's all you, buddy.
Ooh, that would be interesting. They kind of tried to do that with, I didn't see the 2022 version.
The gore was great, but the movie sucked.
Yeah, I've
They
seen
made
the ending of it, which is hilarious.
Yeah, they did some like emotionally manipulative school shooter stuff, and I was like, you shouldn't do this. This is wrong.
Mhm.
So you'll have to watch it and give me your thoughts, but you can take whatever you would like next, except Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's mine, buddy. Sorry.
Oh man, that's a great pick for 74. Um, but yeah, and rewatching that too. I mean, it's such a great film. I would count that as a lightning in a bottle type movie as well.
Yeah. And sometimes because these polls are voted on by our Instagram audience, I have to limit what I want to actually take. Because, like, listen, if I had my druthers, I'm taking Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia. And I'm going, you guys don't understand Sam Peckinpah. You
Um,
never did. You liked the Wild Bunch, and that was it. But no one's gonna know what that is. So Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
well, if I count it as horror, it's not like The Exorcist, but it is kind of an adventure film. It's a summer movie, but it's also one of the best movies ever made. We're gonna say that a lot on the show right now. I gotta jump to 1975 with Steven Spielberg's Jaws.
Yep.
Had to
No,
take that
this
one.
I knew this was happening. Is the 70s the best decade for movies? Probably. So you are gonna hear us
Yeah.
say, yeah,
90s
this is
are
one of the best
close.
movies ever made.
Yeah.
90s are close, and the 2010s are also incredible. But the
Yeah.
70s, they were just writing blank checks and they're going, all right, Steve, you got a shark, do something with it. And Steven Spielberg was going, this is probably too much money to give me at this time, but it's okay. And then he made magic with it because he's Steven Spielberg. Talk about
Yeah.
Jaws, Ryan. Why is it so good? We're gonna need a bigger
Jaws
pod.
Jaws is special because Jaws is special for so many different things. We could go on about the countless iconic lines like that. That's some bad hat, Harry, which inspired a production company. Um, we're gonna need a bigger boat. Honestly, Oscar-worthy performance from Robert Shaw as Quint, who's this he's a fisherman who is essentially hunting the shark and leading the charge. Well, Roy Scheider is, but he's the one who's driving the ship and everything. And he has this incredible scene, this backstory that honestly could have won him the Oscar, where he's going off about the USS Indianapolis that he was on, talking about his experiences with sharks. And I believe that contribution was written by John Milius, who is one of the best known or most influential writers of all time. He also did Apocalypse Now, my other pick. And just this really deep psychological dive into this guy's mind and how he feels about sharks, and it adds to the tension of the rest of the movie. So many brilliant things as well. Like uh Spielberg had done the Sugarland Express before this, but I don't know if people would count Duel as his first film because it's a TV movie, but I would because it's a
I
film.
I say Sugarland Express personally doesn't really matter either way.
Well, yeah,
Both
but
very good.
Sure. So like this would be his sophomore effort in that case for a wide release film. And again, like it's kind of like what Tarantino said with his experience with Pulp Fiction. It's your sophomore movie that kind of solidifies whether this person's going to stick around or not. Reservoir Dogs, we set things off, and then he did Pulp Fiction. Everybody's like, "Oh my God, who is this guy?" And Jaws was like that for Spielberg. Not only did they all make a film that resonated with young audiences too, because it's a summer movie. It's a fun experience, and people like getting scared too. It nails that fun summer atmosphere of Amity Island. Um, every character is realized, and you're not bored. You're fully invested in this family, the Brodies, Roy Scheider, and Lorraine Gary, who would eventually star in Jaws 4 that we don't have to talk about. And actually,
Nope.
Jaws 4 doesn't exist. And seeing these cast of characters band together for this one thing. And then you realize, you look back and you go, with the new Halloween movies, David Gordon Green was trying to make like a slasher film that mattered and said something about society. But then you look back and Spielberg and Peter Benchley, the writer of the book, did that way better
Yep.
like
No, to
50
be
years
fair,
ago.
David Gordon Green was like, yeah, my slashers mean something, and it was about the Capitol insurrection. So I'm not down with that explanation. D double G. We're not doing it.
So yeah, and then like so what happened was like they made a movie where and as people were especially when we're rewatching classics, Jaws hit hard in this case when I was talking to some people that you realize there's clearly this horrible thing going on. So in this case, our generation would be COVID, but Jaws back then, even though it's a fantasy, the idea is that there's this horrible thing going on. People should not be swimming in the water. Um, but it turns out that these capitalist pigs, like the local government and mayors, just like, but we need those summer dollars. We got to keep the beaches open. And it says so much about our culture and just this never-ending system and stuff like that. It's just a damn entertaining movie too. It's not boring at all. It keeps your attention going. It's a fun ride. Also one of the best scores of all time, John
Mhm.
Williams. It solidified two legends, Spielberg, John Williams. It gave us Roy Scheider, one of the most gifted actors of his generation. Richard Dreyfuss, I almost forgot to mention him as Hooper. Even though he says some questionable things nowadays, back then he was crushing it. Um, it's just one of the best movies ever made, and it holds up tremendously well years later.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it also pioneered the dolly zoom, which is now used in movies all the time, and it's always conveyed the same exact meaning. Ryan, you are deeply intelligent about movies. You are a prolific mind on movies. So I don't know if I'll be able to beat you in this movie draft,
It's a
but
competition.
all I want to do is go the distance. Nobody's ever gone the distance with Ryan. And if I can go the distance and the bell rings and I still standing, I'm going to know for the first time in my life that I wasn't just another bum from the neighborhood. In 1976, I'm taking Rocky. There's a lot of fantastic movies in 76, some that I've previously referenced. And then some, there's, for example, All the President's Men, masterpiece. You've got stuff like Network, masterpiece. My favorite Western of all time, The Outlaw Josie Wales, masterpiece. I don't care what you
Nice.
say. But Rocky, when I think about the most rewatchable movie from 76, the movie that like I watched with my father and now I can't wait to show my children, it's Rocky. It's Sylvester Stallone creating a movie where by the end of it, you want to run through a wall like the Kool-Aid Man. I mean, you're just like, I could do anything right now. When that Rocky music plays, you're just like, I could beat God in a fist fight. It's a masterpiece of a movie. I understand some people are like, well, so Stallone's a little bit hard to understand. Sure. Have you ever met a punch drunk boxer in real life? I have. That's how they talk. Okay. Like I had the opportunity to meet Anthony Pettis, UFC champion. For anyone who doesn't watch UFC, but you've seen the clip of the guy running on the cage and then kicking the guy in the head, when I spoke to him, it was a little hard to understand. The guy's taken quite a few heavy punches to the brain. Rocky is just, I think, a masterpiece of a movie with a fantastic score and a great story. And I think it's so effective that Rocky doesn't win. He just goes the distance. And that's what makes it feel so earned that he goes the distance. The boxing scenes are great. Obviously, Apollo Creed, fantastic. Meredith Burgess, great. He's much better in this than he is as the Penguin. Is Folie maybe the most annoying movie character of all time? Yeah, it's like him and the babysitter from Goodfellas who ends up getting Henry in jail. Those two like should be thrown into a special layer of hell.
Like
But
a character
Rocky,
who's like intentionally annoying.
I don't think Polly is supposed to be intentionally annoying. The babysitter in Goodfellas is like, I need to go get my hat. No, you don't need to go get your hat. You got to go sell the stuff. The helicopters are out there. Urgh! She pisses me off every time I think of her. But I love Rocky, and it's a masterpiece of a movie. And I don't know if the first Rocky is the best in the series, because Rocky 2 is fantastic, and Rocky 4 is an important historical artifact, and I stand by that. But
Like it,
Rocky is
it
just
ended the Cold War, so
it did. It really did. Um, Rocky just it's a masterpiece, and I think if any of us could make a movie like that, we would be lucky. I don't know if it should have won Best Picture. Sometimes I think about that. Like, listen, All the President's Men, Network, probably better movies, but Rocky is by far the most culturally impactful of those three. So who
yeah.
knows? All right, Ryan, what are you taking next?
Well, you know what? Just to get it out of the way, and a director we've kind of talked about a couple of times. Um, Same year, 1976, a film that is influential. It wasn't like a huge blockbuster, but this is a film that people have studied for years and years, and it's meant a lot for not only the careers of these people, but just in general the state of movie making. Uh, Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver is my
Yeah,
pick for 1976. Um, this is a tricky movie because it's in that camp of like Fight Club and American Psycho of like film bros who watch movies and they're just like, oh my God, I relate to it. And you're like, maybe that shouldn't be your number one. You could put it
I
in
don't think you understand the movie, friend.
five.
Like,
That's the thing. Like it's it's one of those movies too, and Scorsese's like that as well. It's not really him. It's just people will interpret his art differently. But this is a movie that um Robert De Niro plays a returning Vietnam War vet who's clearly off kilter. He's not in the best mental state and he's in the worst environment possible. New York City back then was the absolute worst place to be. Um, it was just this huge slum. Like you see all these porno theaters and people are all drugged up back then, and it was a crazy time politically as well. Just a crazy decade for the country as a whole. Um, and he's in like the worst place. It really is like hell on earth that he's driving through, and he's just kind of like, even though he's the driver, he feels like he's driving back seat in his own life, and just it's arguably the best character study ever put to film. I know Tarantino's talked about it countless times because you really feel like you know the ins and outs of this guy. Um, Brilliant performances from Sybil Shepherd. Albert Brooks is in it. Every time I watch this movie, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, he's the guy who's helping with the political rally. Jodie Foster, again, a great decade for child performances. Another stellar performance from a young actor who's on the up and coming. Harvey Keitel's great as well. I always love how like he goes from Mean Streets as like the lead, and then he's like this sleazy pimp in this movie. It's just funny how he completely shifts gears with that. Um, but of course, the standout by far is Robert De Niro. This
mm-hmm.
is one of the best performances of all time. He fully inhabits the um the mental state, but also the physicality of this character. And of course, we already mentioned it, but it goes without saying this was a huge influence on Joker.
Absolutely,
Um,
it's a huge influence on many, many things. Many,
yeah, like
many, many things.
so many movies owe their style to this film. I think what it has to say about the power imbalance of society, about the lack of resources that some people have in helping those with mental health issues. And also, too, there's little things as well, just Scorsese being bold with the camera and just being not afraid to move things around. One of my favorite scenes is when De Niro's clearly overstaying his welcome, trying to talk to Sybil Shepherd when he's screwed up, pretty much. And the camera just pans over to the right. And everybody's like, well, you're breaking the rules. What does that mean? Scorsese's indicating to us, as the filmmaker, he's saying, this is the film. Because normally when the camera pans, it's implying, okay, we're moving on, we're going. But it works because De Niro is spending way too much time on this phone call. And so that's indicating to us, oh my God, this is brilliant. And then he walks out. Fantastic score from Bernard Herrmann, who's done the score for Psycho. Um, it's a film, again, I love movies that hypnotize you, and that's definitely what I feel watching this. Taxi Driver.
Yeah, absolutely. Taxi Driver, fantastic. Ryan, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm very excited to take my next pick. In fact, one might say I've got chills and they're multiplying
No
and I'm
way.
losing control because the power that you're supplying, it's electrifying. You better shape up because I'm gonna take Grease in
Is that me
1978.
in a bed?
Oh wow, Ryan, the vocals today. Wow. No, Grease is a masterpiece. It's one of the best movie musicals. It still looks incredible. The music for it so catchy. John Travolta living his life. Olivia Newton-John, let's get physical. It's a masterpiece. It's so good. Every time you watch Grease, you just want to be in the 50s forever. Do I understand the ending at all? No. Maybe Sandy's dead. I'm not sure. She's flying to heaven. When I was a
He
kid, I
just
just
fainted
thought,
in the middle of the carnival.
yeah, no. When I was a kid, I thought they just got exceptionally high, and then people on YouTube were like, "Sandy's dead. She's drowned," and I was like, "What?" So I have no clue what the ending means. All I know is that Grease is fantastic. Travolta, no one can stop him. I mean, from 1970, when did Saturday Night Fever come out? 76, right?
27.
So when from Saturday Night Fever to Blowout, those 4 years, Travolta was king of Hollywood. And then people didn't like Blowout because they're stupid. And I was just like, you guys are
Yeah,
morons.
that's literally De Palma. That might be De Palma's best film. Like,
It is his best film. Tucker gave Blowout a 9 instead of a 10. And we on this show went, boo. Tucker does. He was like, I hate Nancy Allen's voice. Yeah, we all do. It's part of the movie. Just accept it. Her
that's
voice
the
is
reason he
annoying.
didn't like it.
She dies, so it's okay. Blowout masterpiece. Uh, wow, I completely fell off, but Grease is incredible. Summer Lovin', what a movie. Drifting away on those
Had me
summer nights.
hypnotized.
Oh wow, thank you, Ryan. I'm glad you're enjoying yourself in this podcast. What will you be taking next?
So I'm gonna jump back to 77 real quick. This was tough because there's a couple of ones. Saturday Night Fever is like a favorite of mine. Um, I think John Travolta, that would have been my pick for Best Actor that year. Um, I would have gone. I know you're not a fan of Annie Hall, but that was one I thought about because I love the movie despite knowing a lot of the crazy stuff with Woody Allen behind the scenes. Close Encounters would have been a great pick, but let's just call a spade a spade. All right, the best movie in 1977 should have won Best Picture. It's the most important film of that year. It has influenced, like, even if you don't like the movie, it has influenced you in some way. George Lucas's Star Wars.
No, Ryan, you're supposed to let me have that one. Go back, take something else. That's my movie.
No,
You can have Dawn of the Nope, that's 78. You can't have Dawn of the Dead. Tucker, not Tucker, Ryan. Jeez, how about you have Eraserhead, directed by David Lynch, and I'll keep Star Wars, okay?
I gotta
You
take
can
Star
take.
Wars.
No, no, I'm sorry. You can't. No, that's a fit. Yeah, I don't blame you. It's a fantastic pick. I mean, I would too. It's incredible. That's a fantastic choice.
This film has influenced so many people. It's sure on a superficial level, it's the space battles, it's a Ben Burt and the fantastic sound design, it's the groundbreaking special effects, which sure you can tell like this movie's an older film, but you're still like, oh my God, look at all the work that was put into these miniatures and these um all these like 3D designs or whatever, or like the matte paintings and stuff like that. Just the imagination, the fact that he came up with this world, it's just it's the best that movies have to offer. It brings you to a completely new environment, um, in a galaxy far, far away. Uh, Alec Guinness in an Oscar-nominated performance. This rarely happens in blockbuster filmmaking, but Alec Guinness was nominated for playing Ben Kenobi. Um, on easily like one of the most iconic old wise man characters who adds a lot of dimension to the role. He adds a dignity to it. Um, Mark Hamill, of course, people make fun of his acting in this, but I think he's perfectly on key. Him playing like a really young, naive character who's thrusted into this world. The call to action. It's easily one of the best examples of the hero's journey. It's inspired by a lot of like Homer's Odyssey and stuff like that, and and Joseph Campbell and stuff like that. Um, Incredible sequences. Darth Vader, one of the most iconic villains of all time. Of course, I think Darth Vader's cool in this. He's propped up way more in the second one, which again, this isn't an 80s list, but of course, Empire's where we really see the real Darth Vader, but he's great in this. Han Solo, maybe the best character in the whole movie, played by Harrison Ford. This pretty much kickstarted Harrison Ford's career. Carrie Fisher as like the spunky, tough, but intelligent Princess Leia. Art a bold move. This movie opens with R2D2 and C3PO, played by Kenny Baker and Anthony Daniels, respectfully. And uh, a bold move to open your movie with two robot characters who nobody has any idea who they are, and yet we're fully engaged with their comedy and stuff like that and their banter. Um, the sense of scale to it as well. Another iconic score from John Williams. Maybe I have scores that like I loved Danny Elfman's Batman score. I love a lot of great stuff like Jaws, but honestly, I think that this might be the best composed film score of all time.
Yeah, and any other ones that are competition, they were all done by John Williams. Like there's
Yeah,
an argument. Okay, maybe it's Indiana Jones, maybe it's Jurassic Park. All of them, Big John. So
yeah,
Star Wars, incredible. I think frankly the best part of A New Hope is Harrison Ford's Han Solo. He is who you are just attracted to and gravitating to because it's good because then Empire 5 gets to be the Luke story, but Han Solo is the star of A New Hope, at least in my opinion. Fun fact, I had a lisp as a child, so I would call C3PO Free 3PO.
yeah.
He was Free 3PO, and because I was embarrassed to say that, I would just call him Trumpet Man. So now my mom will be like, "Oh yeah, put on that movie with Trumpet Man." I'm like,
Yeah,
"Trumpet Man." I'm like, "Does she mean Ma Rainey's Black Bottom?" No, she's referring to C3PO in Star Wars. A
completely
New
different
Hope.
movie.
I'm a little salty that you took it. It's all good. I would have liked it myself. It's a fantastic pick,
It's
Ryan.
all good.
I'm not actually salty. That's how a draft works. I feel like I pushed it a little bit, but I was like, but I also need grease. So I
Yeah.
wasn't sure. Good pick by you.
Directed by Randall Kleiser from the same USC days as George Lucas and those guys. So,
Oh, there you go.
and Walter
Uh,
Murch, of course, he's like done sound for all those guys and edited. Like that's that whole film school generation. So
are you when you become like the greatest name in film, you're gonna have like a Syracuse cohort, and it's
I
just
wish.
like, you've got Marky Mark doing your voiceovers and Chris Nichols being your eye candy. Lots of different things that could be done here, Ryan. That's all I'm saying.
Oh
All
man.
right. I think we have filled out every year in terms of like, there's no years that you and I both don't have except for this one, 1970. And as I mentioned, I kind of think that's a sucky year for movies. So I'm just going to take what I think is the most impactful movie of that year, and it's going to be a documentary, The Rolling Stones, Give Me Shelter. Let me
Ooh.
explain. So, for anyone who doesn't know, Ryan, do you know the story of the Altamonte concert that the Rolling Stones played at the Altamonte Speedway?
Vaguely familiar with it. So
Okay, so Rolling Stones, they are the biggest musical group at this time. And they do a concert at the Altamont Speedway, which is in Northern California. And the Speedway it's not owned by the Hells Angels Biker Club, but it's like mafia protection. They protect the speedway. So it was like, hey, if you guys want to do a concert here, you have to let the Hells Angels be your security guards. If anyone doesn't know who the Hells Angels are, they were an extremely, extremely violent biker gang who killed many people. So, not a good idea to have them be security for a concert. The other thing was, this wasn't just a Rolling Stones concert. The Grateful Dead were here. Ike and Tina Turner were there. Some of the biggest names in music in the 60s were here. So this concert happened in 1969. Well, a lot of drugs start flying around. Some by the musicians, some by the Hells Angels, and people are coming because the hell this is like a Taylor Swift show. Like how famous she is now, that's how famous the Rolling Stones were in the 60s. And so because of that, people have been there. If the show started at 8, people have been there since 11 in the morning, and they're doing coke and they're doing heroin and they're off their damn minds. Their brains are melted. They look like an over easy egg. This is your
For
brain
Adam
on
Driver and
drugs.
Megalopolis.
Essentially, yes, you are not wrong. Uh, and so the crowd is violent. They are angry, and people are punching Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger gets a black eye because he gets out of his helicopter, and a fan socks him. People are getting into fights with the Hell's Angels. The Grateful Dead say we're not performing because we do drugs, but it's weed. That's it. We're all blissed out of our minds. You guys are on black tar heroin. No, thank you. And then somebody gets pissed off at a Hell's Angel member because he's trying to storm the stage, and the Hell's Angels say, "No, you can't storm the stage. Like you guys already punched Mick Jagger. You're not going to do that again." And what happens? He pulls out a revolver, and the Hell's Angel guy stabs him about 14 times in the chest. And it was all captured on camera. Now, Ryan, would you like to know a fun fact?
I would love to know a fun fact.
Do you want to know who operated the camera that got the footage of the man being stabbed to death?
Oh, I feel like I know this, but please tell me because I don't remember.
It was a young George Lucas, creator of Star Wars. He was on the
Wow.
documentary team, and it
And
was a
he knew the Grateful Dead and those guys. So yeah.
yeah, it was supposed to just be a concert video, and it ended up becoming a documentary of how hard drug usage and rock and roll killed somebody. And
Yeah.
so then this that became part of the whole thing of the degradation of American culture and the countercultural movement, and how Satan uses rock and roll to enslave the minds of the children. Hail Satan! As Nicolas Cage says in my favorite film Renfield, and then also in Longlegs. Rolling Stones, Give Me Shelter, one of my favorite documentaries of all time. Ryan, feel free to take whatever you'd like to next.
That is a great pick. I'm gonna jump to 1971, and this is a tricky one because again, you got Willy Wonka, so can't pick that. But even though that's one of my personal favorite movies of all time, I could go with Peter Bogdanovich's Last Picture Show. Rest in peace. Phenomenal film, stellar cast. I could pick another Bill Friedkin film in The French
Mm-hmm.
Connection, one of my all-time,
Mm-hmm.
another one of my all-time favorite movies.
La
That
French Connection. Oui, oui,
like
oui.
when I first saw that movie, I know he was heavily inspired by Z from
Mm-hmm.
1969, where he kind of went with like, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre is like this too. Like the way they shoot on a certain film, I don't know what this was shot on. I don't think it was 16 millimeter, but
It, it almost looks like 16 millimeter VistaVision because
yeah, like
it's not 35, but it's also not 16. It's closer to 16 than 35, so I think it must be altered 16, maybe Panvision. It was one of
yeah,
the two.
it might be Panavision because like the resolution of it makes it look like a documentary, and that's something that
Exactly.
blew my
Yes.
mind the first time I saw it. Like I saw that in high school, and I was like, "Whoa, this changes my perception of movies." But and some people may not like this, but again, it's another film bro one, I guess, kind of. But it's still a masterpiece. I'm gonna go with Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange, the best film of 1971 that okay, I think this could have won Best Picture, but or no, I think it should have won Best Picture. Like if I was an Academy voter, I would have picked that. However, I know that's naive and stupid because there's no way, even today, the Academy would not pick this movie.
No, it wouldn't
It's
happen, man.
too dangerous of a film that even today, like this movie really is. It's edgy,
It's a
like
hard sit. It's a hard sit, just straight up. It is a harder sit than the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
oh
It does
yes,
not pull any punches. Malcolm McDowell in this movie is the devil himself. Just
absolutely, he's
I'm
the
just being
devil
honest.
incarnate.
And then what happens to him, they still somehow make you feel bad. So this applies to a couple movies on this list. For example, Rolling Stones Give Me Shelter. It
Yeah,
was the 70s. They show you a man being stabbed, a real person being stabbed to death 14 times. A Clockwork Orange as well, just trigger warning. I mean, for those two in particular, some of the stuff that they depict in those two movies, you see in Give Me Shelter, heroin needles being pushed into people's arm. So,
yeah,
just I'm not saying they're bad movies, but just exercise. If you're someone who may be easily triggered, just do
yeah.
a little research before you watch the movie. That's all.
Yeah, either like avoid it or if you're still interested, like proceed with caution, just because
Yeah, or
there's
maybe
some
just watch it with a friend.
yeah.
Whatever.
So if you need like a sports system, but yeah, but Clockwork Orange, um, easily the performance of Malcolm McDowell's career. Not that he hasn't done great work outside of this, but he's fully entranced in the character of Alex and his three droogs. these guys who live in this kind of futuristic dystopia type world. It's kind of a science fiction film. Um, and it's about society and its decay. It's like it's not necessarily like Taxi Driver where it's like it's a completely miserable setting. There's still civilization, but these guys are running amok. It's like I think Spielberg described it as like the first punk film, and it is kind of like that. Um, some of the most iconic and inspired visuals are from this movie that people take from other films. The musical cues, maybe some of the best that Kubrick ever had. It's jarring and bizarre and just all over the place, and yet the story still, the movie gives you the impression that it's all over the place, but there's still this connective tissue, this thread that's pushing it along. Unlike Megalopolis, where you don't know what the hell's going on the whole movie.
Nothing was going on. Nothing
Nothing.
happened in that movie.
A lot of people say important stuff or important, but it doesn't mean anything at the end.
The most important thing with this movie is that it gave us the gift. So why don't you go back to the club? That's the best thing that happened in the entire movie. That's the most
Stalk some
impact it's
people
going to
who
have
you
on you.
really know. Fine, I will. But anyway, enough Megalopolis. But like this film, it's a movie that again it challenges you because Alex is this horrible person. He's taken into this asylum to be studied, and these doctors who are examining him put him through this test, these several procedures, and despite how horrible this person is, what they're trying to do is essentially brainwash him into becoming a better person. And there's this strange ethical and moral dilemma where you're like, yes, this guy's awful, but is it really in our best nature as human beings to do this to other people, like, and change that? And then and it's weird. Like, I'm not saying how I feel about it. I'm just saying the question it poses is really interesting. So it's, I don't want to say it's a fun watch because it's really disturbing, but it keeps your interest going. And I think just a movie this bold it was mainstream. Like, it was a film that had a lot of publicity, which is crazy to think this was in a huge theater. But it's a bold film back then. It's still bold today. Gotta respect Kubrick. Great movie. 1971, Clockwork Orange.
Absolutely. Well, next, 1973, I am going to take The Sting. Listen, I love the movie. I hate the score. The score is god awful. It's swing music. It completely it destroys the theming and the tension of the movie. You cannot expect the movie to be tense when I'm hearing it's what? No. No, you're destroying that. So one thing I would love is just like Steven Soderbergh cut and rescored Raiders of the Lost Ark. I really think they should do that for The Sting. I'd do it. I'm volunteering. Uh, Also, you need to watch the 4K remaster of this because unfortunately, the original one just doesn't look good. It looks a lot poorer than some other movies from 73. Like The Exorcist, if you watch the original, looks way better than The Sting. I don't know if it was the cameras they used, maybe just the film stock got damaged somehow in between 73, not sure, but watch the 4K remaster. It looks insanely better. This movie works because of its leads who work extremely well together. Robert Redford, my dad's favorite actor, and Paul Newman, one of America's favorite actors. It really pained me to not be able to take Jeremiah Johnson because that is my dad's favorite movie, and I have watched it so many times growing up. And Jeremiah Johnson, just a masterpiece. You got to watch it
Classic.
if you love westerns. But Redford and Newman in The Sting, they are fantastic together. I think I prefer Redford a little bit more than Newman in this movie. I think I like Newman more overall. His dressing's fantastic. Thank you, Paul. But Robert Redford in this movie, I think, is just a little bit better. Great screenplay, great story. It has not aged incredibly. There's a couple usages of the N word where you're like, whoa, forgot about that. But besides that, I
I
think The
forgot about
Sting,
that too.
yeah, right at the beginning. I think The Sting is fantastic, and Redford is so captivating in it, and I love it. Just fix the score. That's all I ask. And watch the 4K remaster. You can get it right now on Amazon for $16. I didn't know it was that cheap. I will be ordering myself a copy. So physical media for the win at all times. Physical media stays up. Ryan got me a copy of Armageddon by Michael Bay for my college graduation, and ever since then I've pledged my loyalty to you, Ryan. So physical media, we stay up top. Ryan, what will you be taking next, buddy?
Oh my God. Pick. I'm gonna jump to 1974.
Okay.
Um, and this is a tough year. Honestly, this might be my favorite year for films in general. Well, it's close. It's up there because you have Again, I feel like I always have to preface this by saying because there's so many like monsters in Hollywood, but like Chinatown's an amazing film despite
It
Roman
is. It is.
Polanski.
Yes,
Yeah,
that doesn't make it any less of an incredible movie. Same
I
with
know it's still
Rosemary's
different.
Baby. They're just always going to be great movies.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate with who the person is, but and then you have like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like you listed, one of the best horror films ever made. Um, two of my favorite comedies of all time, Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein, Mel Brooks. The Conversation by Francis Ford Coppola, again, back when he was making good movies. However, I'm still gonna pick a Coppola film, but it's not The Conversation. It's a basic choice, I know. But you picked the first one, so I'm gonna have the sequel. It's Godfather Part 2.
Yeah,
Uh
I mean, I would be
yeah.
very surprised if you didn't take this. That it would just you kind of just have to.
It's hard. It's because even though Chinatown is it's a masterpiece, it's hard to go up against Godfather 2. A
Yeah.
sequel that people were worried about was like, do we really need another one? And that actually adds more to the dynamic of the first one and it evolves the story. Michael is not the same person he was in the first film. He is a full-on monster in this
Hmm.
film. And they brilliantly, what's best about this, it's a part sequel and it's part prequel as well. A part of
Hmm.
the brilliance of it is that it honestly is the best sequel and prequel at the same time. Kill two birds with one stone. We have the main story with Michael in the 50s, um, who's trying to he understands that there's people who are out to get him and the family fortune. And so he's trying to figure this out and also dealing with marital issues with his wife, played by Diane Keaton, and he's being portrayed by his brother Fredo. Lots of things going on with that character. He gets the kiss of death. And then we cut back to these flashbacks of a young Vito, played by Robert De Niro, who is incredible and deserved the Oscar that year for playing one. Again, applaud to him for not only just doing a phenomenal job of understanding the assignment, but also you're going up against one of the most iconic actors of all time in the first movie, and you do just as incredible of a job in the second one. So applaud to him for that. Also, as a personal note, um, I'm not Italian. I have no connection to this is a separate thing, obviously. I have no connection to like what happens in the movie, literally. But I'm a sucker for good immigrant stories because a lot of my family are immigrants. So I'm really excited for The Brutalist. I hear that Brady Corbett's film is kind of echoes aspects of 70s Coppola. So I'm really interested in that movie. I haven't seen it yet. I didn't get to go to Toronto this year, but um, this film to me, I think it captures like the warmth of the cinematography of the first one. The score is once again incredible, and they add layers to that. It's just it's a film that gives you more of the same feeling of the first movie, and yet they still go in twists and turns that you wouldn't expect. And it tells the complete story with one and two. Um, Al Pacino should have won the Oscar that year. I all due respect to I think what Peter Finch won Best
Yeah.
Actor. All due respect to
Posthumously,
him.
I think. Wasn't he dead when he won?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like all respect to him, but this is a career-defining performance by Pacino. I don't know why he didn't win that year. Maybe just because he was young and still, I don't know.
I
Stupid
don't
reason.
know. I honestly think it might have been because he was a New York guy. The simple as that. Same thing as Scorsese
Yeah,
didn't win until 2006. He was a New York person. Who knows?
yeah. So I don't know, but like Pacino's phenomenal in this. Should have won some of the best performances of all time. Uh, it's a great movie, and I think it tells a great parallel story. We see two sides of these people who are even though they humanize them to the best of their ability, they're still criminals. Young Vito is this guy who's killing people and making these shady deals, but he's doing this because he's trying to build a life for his family. So even though it sounds cryptic, you're like, yes, but in a weird way, there's a nobility to what he's doing, if that's even the best word. And Pacino is doing it for selfish reasons, for self-preservation. So you see the two sides of that coin with father and son. So brilliant film. Definitely benefits from watching one and two together. Godfather 2, my pick for 74.
Absolutely. Well, Ryan, we both have three left. So what I'm thinking is we'll both do all three of ours at the same time. Or
Okay.
just this way, because my family is going to come home with groceries soon, and it is going to be the loudest thing you've ever heard because I have so many siblings. So to make sure that we are not inundating the audience with a wall of sound, we'll do each of our three and get those done. So I have 1975, 1977, and 1979, and these are pretty easy for me. Starting in 1975, we talked about Al Pacino and how he should have won the Academy Award for The Godfather Part 2. But if he wasn't going to win it for that, he certainly should have won it for this. In 1975, I would take Sidney Lumet's Dog Day Afternoon. It's a masterpiece. One of the best movies I've ever seen. Attica, Attica. You've got Pacino, you've got John Cazale. They are both just incredible together. And it's a fantastic performance of a man who knows his life is ending and he's looking down the barrel of the gun, but he's not going down without a fight. I think it's just incredible. And Sidney Lumet is one of the best directors of all time. So I just think the two of them put together, it's just an absolute masterpiece. And the screenplay is fantastic and the music is good, and just Pacino looks like he's melting in that movie, and he kind of was. And Lumet made all the hostages stay in one room together, so they hated each other, and you can tell. It's
Yeah.
just fantastic directing. In 77, I'm going to take the greatest giallo horror movie of all time, directed by Dario Argento, one of the kings
Ooh, nice.
of. I thought you were going to take this and I'd get Star Wars, but it's okay. One of the kings of giallo horror. It's Suspiria. The only thing scarier than normal witches are Italian witches. Let me tell you. And so this American girl comes to a German ballet school, and there's not just Germans there. Are they German or Italian witches? I feel like they're a little bit of both. They're European witches,
Yeah.
scary European witches, and
The Guadagnino one, they're definitely German. So I
yeah.
remember.
Well, I'll tell you this: people are dying, but they're dying really beautifully. Like the lighting of this movie, the red all around, it's so beautiful to look at. Um, Another Black Christmas isn't a giallo horror movie, but it has a giallo horror kill where someone's being stabbed to death with a
Yeah.
crystal unicorn and the light is bouncing off it. And I saw that and I was like, oh, that's beautiful. And then I saw Suspiria and I was like, oh, that's even more beautiful. And it's for the entire movie. So I think
Yeah.
Suspiria is a masterpiece. Shout out two of my favorite European witches, Ro and Caroline, listeners to the show. They are both massive fans of Suspiria. I think it's a masterpiece and you can't go wrong with it. And then finally, in 1979, Ryan, in space, there's no one to hear you scream. I've got to take Ridley Scott's Alien, A Tale of Bodily Autonomy, A Tale of Sigourney Weaver being cooler than everybody, Ridley Scott saying, don't get pregnant, because that's horrible. And the chestburster scene is one of the greatest things I've ever seen in a movie. Alien, I think, is just captivating and a masterpiece. And I love all three of the picks I had. Ryan, I'll let you take yours now, buddy.
Those are great. And honestly, like I thought you were gonna take Apocalypse Now. Alien would have been my pick then.
Yeah,
So I guess the two of the best films of that year.
yeah. Run DMC. It's tricky. That's all I'll
Yeah.
say. It's tricky.
Well, I'm gonna go to 1970 real quick. We talked about how it's not rewatchable necessarily, but I gotta go with Five Easy Pieces. I think it's one of Jack Nicholson's best performances. I think it has this sort of melancholy feel from that new Hollywood era, specifically late 60s to early 70s. I love the scenery in it. I love the dialogue. I think it showcases the best examples of this sort of, I don't want to say dire, but this downer state of the early 70s and these really honest and bold swings that filmmakers took back then. Maybe just it had to do with the times. I don't know. Again, late 60s to early 70s was a very peculiar time for the country and honestly the whole world.
Mhm.
So I have to go with that. And Jack Nicholson owns that film. It's one of his best
Oh,
roles.
absolutely.
So 72. You owned me. Like Godfather is the best film of that year. Okay, I'm probably ruining my draft right now, but 72, I'm gonna go with Cabaret, Bob
Yeah.
Foster's film. I think it's a phenomenal movie. It has some wonderful dance sequences. I love the look of the film. It feels grand. It matters. It's a musical that has a lot to say. On a technical level, it's impressive and it is entertaining. Liza Minnelli is brilliant in this. Um, and as much as I appreciate it, I mean, you win that year though, Godfather. Like as I don't want to downplay Cabaret because it is a phenomenal movie, but it's no Godfather. Um, And then 78 is ridiculously tough because there's movies that are my personal favorites, but I think I'm going to go with another Vietnam film and pick Michael Cimino's The Deer Hunter. Um, stellar performance from De Niro, stellar performance from Meryl Streep. John Cazale again is at the top of his game in this. Christopher Walken in an Oscar-winning performance.
A
They
terrifying
really,
performance too. Let's be real here. It's terrifying.
oh, absolutely, it's a haunting film. It's one of like the scariest movies in terms of the cerebral nature of it and the emotional detachment that the characters feel. These guys are working in the steel mill and where is it, like Pittsburgh or something like
Pittsburgh,
that?
yes. Oh, hold
Yeah,
on, Ryan. We're getting a phone call. Hold on. It's Christopher Walken on the line. Oh, hold on. Let's see what he has to say. Ryan, it's me, Christopher Walken. I used to be in The Deer Hunter. Then I played a very large monkey in The Jungle Book. What a picture! Thank you, Christopher Walken. We appreciate your time.
Ooby Doo, I want
Sorry,
to be like you.
Obi do. I want to be like you. Ooh ooh.
Um, but it's a shame too that, and you see the brilliance of Michael Cimino's vision. Unfortunately, when he got to Heaven's Gate, a lot of people just did not share that vision with him. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. I'd love to rewatch it. I don't think it's as bad as some people say, but it's not
It's
great.
not. It is like Megalopolis, where you have to commend the vision, but you're like, I don't know if this came together. Like you have the vision, but then you gotta synthesize it with actually being a good movie.
Yeah.
Happens.
So again, like Deer Hunter, and it wasn't like a total like end. Well, it did kind of end his career, even though he made other movies. But it's
It
like
ended the new Hollywood.
he had Thunderbolt and Lightfoot and Deer Hunter, so he had two. He had two
Mhm.
solid films from the 70s. Well, no, this is a masterpiece and very deserving of the best picture that year. So yeah, my pick for the 70s. That's my list.
Absolutely. So I will read out our list, and then we'll have any honorable mentions we may have that we may want to get out there, and then we'll end with a streaming recommendation. So Ryan, if you don't have a recommendation, this is your time where you get to look one up. Ryan drafted in 1970 Five Easy Pieces, in 1971 A Clockwork Orange, in 1972 Cabaret, in 1973 The Exorcist, in 1974 The Godfather Part 2, 75 Jaws, 76 Taxi Driver, 77 Star Wars, now known as Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope, 78 The Deer Hunter, and 1979 Apocalypse Now. Me, in 1970, I got the Rolling Stones, Gimme Shelter. In 1971, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. In 1972, The Godfather. In 1973, The Sting. In 1974, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. In 1975, Dog Day Afternoon. In 1976, Rocky. In 1977, Dario Argento's Suspiria. In 1978, Grease. And in 1979, Alien. Ryan, do you have any honorable mentions that you'd like to share that you weren't able to draft, whether just because you knew they weren't popular enough, maybe you just couldn't find a way to put them in your list? What would you recommend that the audience check out?
Other films that I gotta mention there again, I briefly mentioned Chinatown from 74. Again, a lot of 74 movies, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein. Um, I gotta mention The Conversation, another Coppola film. 73, one of my personal favorites of that year, another George Lucas movie, American Graffiti. It's a personal favorite of mine, but I think Exorcist is a film that I love, and I just think it's the best film of that year. Um, 72, again, I thought about putting Deliverance on there, but again, it's no Godfather, so I had to pick like what would be the best case scenario for that. We mentioned 71 movies. 79, another Bob Fosse film. I love All That Jazz, so that would have been a good contender. 77, I mentioned a couple there. 78, so the other two I was going to mention, Halloween's probably my personal favorite on the list there. But I think if I just really wanted to go hard and pick Deer Hunter. Also, of course, the original Superman, I would have picked that. Those are the big ones that come to mind right now. So,
Absolutely. A couple of my honorable mentions. In 1972, I already mentioned it, Jeremiah Johnson. 1970, Kelly's Heroes. It's a war heist movie with Clint Eastwood and Donald Sutherland and Don Rickles. You can't go wrong with it. In 1973, Paper Moon, Peter Bogdanovich. I think
ooh,
that's just an
yeah.
incredible movie. Also, Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee, the first martial arts movie I ever saw, one of the best martial arts movies I've ever seen since. 1974, John Cassavetes' A Woman Under the Influence. There's a reason everyone takes it out of the Criterion Closet, including our beloved Sean Fennessy. I don't know if you saw Ryan, he will be appearing in the Criterion Closet. I'm very excited. You already mentioned Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles. I would also say The Towering Inferno in 74 is a masterpiece. 1975's Night Moves and the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Assault on Precinct 13, 1976. awesome. Freaking awesome, man. John Carpenter does not miss. Lady Snowblood in 73. Shout out my guy Roman. He loves that movie. He showed it to me. He knows what he's talking about. 1977, Slapshot, fantastic hockey comedy starring Paul Newman. Hasn't aged incredibly, but is deeply, deeply funny. And then finally, you already kind of mentioned a bunch of the ones from 1978, but George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. Can't go wrong with it. It's a pretty solid zombie
Nice.
movie. Ryan, what would you recommend to people that's on streaming that they should check out?
Ooh, well, specifically 70s movies?
Anything you want, any movie that you think people need to check out that's streaming somewhere.
Anything that's streaming right now.
And I could go first if you need me to go first. I'd be
Well,
glad
I
to.
know Whiplash just had its 10th anniversary, and I think that's on Netflix, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. So yeah, definitely check out Whiplash again. Um, I know a movie that it's not really a recommendation, but if anybody is interested in continuing the conversation, this October spooky season, I want to watch House, the
Okay.
Japanese horror film from 77, so to keep it 70s themed. I think that's on Max. So I want to check that out and throw it out there for people who are interested.
Absolutely. Well, Ryan, for me, my recommendation, you can find it on Peacock or on Paramount Plus, is going to be The Big Short, directed and written by Adam McKay. I think it's a fantastic dramedy, kind of a drama, but also deeply funny, starring Christian Bale, Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, Brad Pitt, and then a bunch of other people who you're like, oh my gosh, it's Margot Robbie in a bubble bath here to explain Bonds to me, stuff like that. I just think this is a fantastic vignette movie that is a great sense of humor and a great visual style. Whether you like the contents of The Big Short and Vice and their political leanings, the style for them is just simply incredible. And I really love that movie. I think Ryan Gosling is the best part of the movie. Unfortunately, I think Christian Bale is the weakest part. That's just me. He and
Interesting.
Brad Pitt, I struggle with. And then the other one, we talked about this on the show a couple weeks ago. I've rewatched it two times. I've seen this movie thrice now. Wolves, George Clooney, Brad Pitt. It is refreshing how competently average this movie is. Brad Pitt and George Clooney are good actors. They
It's
don't
just
do
a
anything more
solid
than be
movie.
good actors. Exactly. It's just a solid movie. John Watts is a solid director. It's got a solid screenplay. It is just a solid movie. And it's really nice to just have a solid movie sometimes. So I'd recommend both of those. Ryan, thank you so much for appearing on the show. Everyone, make sure you check out Ryan Movie Guy on YouTube. It's got great content. Also, make sure you're checking out the podcast social media. We're on Instagram at Scum Podcast Official, and we're on Letterboxd at Scum Pod, capital SCUM. You can also follow me on Letterboxd at capital GJB RADHAM02. Ryan, what's your Letterboxd? I always forget it.
It's Ryan T. McGuire, same as my Instagram, and I'm pretty sure I use that for all my social media handles. So
Well, make sure you check out Ryan and make sure you come back for another episode of Serious Cinema for Unserious Men. We'll see you next time.